2, 3, 4. I came across a drifting ship. I took a look inside. I found a note that someone wrote that said, take her for a ride. I set a course for sights unseen, went out to open sea. To my surprise, a bunch of sailors joined along with me. Now we're sailing on the mystery ship, and all the sailors here are really here. There isn't any cost of membership. All that you gotta do is join our trip. Yeah, I'm the captain of the mystery ship, and I'm a-calling all aboard this trip. I'm really hoping that you'll enjoy it up on the mystery ship. So bring a friend and come along with us aboard the mystery ship.
Well, good evening, my friends. Welcome aboard the mystery ship once again. We are sailing into uncharted waters this evening. Waters. What the heck is going on with my tongue? Come on, Zoe, I need you to be able to enunciate tonight. Welcome, my friends. How are you doing out there? Taking a quick peek across the board. Well, look at that. M1911 Zoom. What are you doing, my man? Good to freaking see you. Good to have you aboard, brother. How's it going? Good to see you. All right, let's give a quick check across the platforms. You know, it's kind of funny. I've been, for whatever reason, my pilled foxhole has been screwing with me lately. As many times as I push the little live button, I'm always, 35, 45 seconds behind real life. But tonight, I am clicking. Zigzag Tallywag, how are you doing, kiddo? Good to see you. Hey, that is a throwback. Wonderful to have you along. Hope you guys are doing great. Seriously, you just put a smile on my face. I hope you and Tasselhawk are doing wonderfully. Good to see you. Really good to see you. Wow. Let's take a quick trip around the channels. Looks like we are live. Yes, we are live at YouTube. Let me take a second and turn my brother blue here. There we go. Zoomer, you should be blue the next time you say something. Great to have you guys aboard. Antisocial, King Cracker. Hope everything is good in your world, gentlemen. Welcome aboard the mystery ship. Checking in over at Pilled, where, man, this is great. I am absolutely dead on live, just absolutely perfectly live. And we have got some wonderful sailors. I just said hello to a dear old friend, Zigzag Tallywag. Seriously, she goes back to like the origins of this show, the very beginnings of the show on the Foxhole. She was there. Wow, great to see you. EO2 Dave in the house. How are you doing, brother? You are going to be prominently featured in this next little piece of video I have. I'm excited to show it to you. Val Hall is with us. Double D, due diligence. Same with both of you. You are going to be prominently featured in this new little short video I have. I'm happy to play it tonight. Girl Patriot is with us. What's going on, sister? Hope everything is wonderful in Texas. Joelaine. What can I say? Great to see you, my friend. Great to have you aboard. Always good. You put a smile on my face looking up and seeing your name in the chat. Sean Joe just can't ever just walk in the door and like dust off his feet and come aboard. He's got to throw gold pills all over the ground. I love you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you kindly. CDP4JC, it's been a minute. It is wonderful to have you aboard, my friend. Love that sticker. Hope you're doing well. Great to have you. Great to have you join us. Love boat tonight. It's going to be a very interesting boat tonight. This is going to be one of the most different mystery ships you have ever sailed upon, and I'm excited about it. Due diligence. I will have a grog on you, my man. Looking at you. Here's looking up your address. Good to see you, my brother. Good to see you. I checked in on Double D's show last night. He had a fine one. A fine crowd. A great panel. A great Tuesday night show. If you're not catching Due Diligence's Tuesday night show, make a point of checking him out, people. Always an interesting couple of hours. Prairie Fire is with us. I love that sticker. I do love that sticker. Thank you, Girl Patriot. Old Time Radio. What station do I dial into? You won't have to do a thing tonight, my dear. You're going to just sit back and you're going to let Zoso's dulcet tones take you away. That is the plan. Let's see who else we got hanging out here. We've got a bunch of wonderful people. Hangover Gang, still waiting for my shirt. My friend, be patient. It has been, there's snow in the forecast tonight. It was 28 degrees when I woke up this morning. It's not really conducive to working outside and doing tie-dye. I don't mind taking one for the team, but it's a little freaking cold for doing tie-dye. They're coming. They're coming. Do me a favor, Hangover Gang, though. I promise you, you will get your shirt. Send me a DM just reminding me shirt size and mailing address. And, dude, I promise, you got one. You got one on me. Free for nothing. Free for nothing. Who else we got hanging out here? Who else we got hanging out? Zigzag Tallywag, as I said, wonderful. Wonderful to see your face. Gosh almighty, you just made my day. You just made my day. Yes, I will message you. I will message you. I'll be happy to do it. Crazy Chuck with a K from Toledo. How's everything in Toledo, my friend? Good to see you. Wonderful to have you with us. My goodness, the foxholers are rolling out my M1911 Zoom. There's no shortage of sailors there tonight. Wonderful to see you. Let's get over to the home of the champions. The home of, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Gloria comes cruising in. Did you hear that rumble? You know what? I'm going to have a motorized rumble. You know what I really want? I want one of those soundboards like Frank has, like Craig has, where you push a button and it plays back a preloaded little. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to do that. Look, sheeple beware. We're taking on water. Sheeple, we're taking on water. I'm from Boston. Let's see who's hanging out at D Live, the home of the this month's champions. This month's champions, Bad Zoot in the house. I don't think they come any prettier than that. Spudley, enable stickers, please. Okay, I will. What you don't know is on Saturday, Spud, the stickers were just out of control. They were out of control. So stickers enabled. Flying pussies coming up. I know it. Gloria Paddock is with us. Great to have you aboard, little lady. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for roaring in that Ninjaghini. I'm going to get the sound of a Lamborghini. And every time you do that, I'm going to go that frickin' 12-cylinder monster. We're going to have to do that. My name is D. Max Headroom sticker. My name is D is with us. Jayla17 is in the house. Great news about her husband. We'll get there in a moment. Artist61, better known as our dear sister Steph. Let me turn on my fireflies when I think of Steph. I turn on my fireflies. There we go. It was Steph's birthday yesterday, people. Please take a minute and wish our dear sister Steph a happy birthday. A happy belated birthday, but a birthday nonetheless. Great to see you, little lady. Great to have you aboard. Lieutenant Cooker in the house. He's not screwing around, people. He's lighting the place on fire. Ah, yes. Sheeple beware. Always a pleasure. Lynn Winters, how you doing, little lady? Wonderful to see your smiling face. It always is. Zootallures, Amethyst Cat. Amethyst Cat. Need I say more about the little purple kitty? We love her around here. Sleeping Stars. Shelby, I am so excited about your future and that nice note you sent saying that prayers have turned your life around. I am ecstatic to know that life is good in your general direction. Thank you, Lieutenant Cooker and Artist61 for donating ice creams. And, of course, Gloria for roaring in the Ninja Genie. You are the greatest. All of you guys. Spudley is with us. Spud in the house. I don't know that I've had a better time. And I haven't even said a word yet. I haven't said a word yet about tonight's show. Happy Wackadoodle Wednesday. Wackadoodle. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be whacking some kind of doodle around here. Let's have a peek over at YouTube. We've got wonderful friends hanging out over there. Zoomer is with us. King Cracker. Who else did I see? I saw someone else. Andy Social checking in over there. How about Rumble? Are we rumbling? Look at that. We've got sailors over at Rumble. Whoever the fine lurkers are hanging out at Rumble, I'm so pleased that you've decided to join us here on the Mystery Ship. I've said my hellos, just for the fun of it. Just for the fun of it. Let's have a look at Twitch. Do you guys remember the time that I went on that guy's program, that far left guy over at, that far left guy over at Twitch? I can't even remember his name anymore. I wonder if he's still out there. Well, it was a good time. I proved to him that, us righties are, we're just normal folk. We're just plain old everyday, good, having a good time kind of people. Folks, tonight's program, you'd give me a lemon wedge, but you can't. My name is D. I'm going to let that one go. You can't throw a guy a straight line like that and not expect some kind of quip. I think I saw Val Kimber in the house. The sea cow at the beginning smelled Val's pheromones out there and got all excited and was really putting on the heat tonight. Val, you got to tone it down, buddy. You've got to tone it down a little bit. Anyway, thank you for joining me on the Mystery Ship. It's going to be a wonderful evening tonight. Well, we'll just explain a little bit more. I love to stay abreast of the daily news. There are so many things that you learn. For instance, yesterday I learned that President Trump challenged Joe Biden to a debate. And Joe Biden's retort was, well, if I was Donald Trump, I'd want to debate me too. That was his answer. Now, whether it will happen or not is, that's another story. But the bottom line is this. News. Okay? There are so many sources of news. There is first thing in the morning news. There is mid-morning news. There is news at noon. There's news in the early afternoons. News in the late afternoons. There's dinner time news. There's prime time news. There's news late in the evening. There's the wrap-up news at the end of the day. How much freaking news can a person have? And I love news. I do. I love staying abreast, especially if it's a double D. I love staying abreast of news. I do. But the thing is, your brain, it deserves a little bit of a break now and then. Somehow, some way, once in a while, you've got to just turn off that tube, take a left turn, and just take that Etch-a-Sketch. If this is an Etch-a-Sketch of your mind, you got to turn it upside down and you got to shake that motherfucker. Otherwise, you just go crazy. You go freaking crazy. So what I like to do with this show, even though you could probably ask me, and I'm probably up on the very, very, very latest news, I've got to take a break from it once in a while. I have to, for my sanity, for my sanity. So that's what I like to do with this show. The reason it is called The Mystery Ship is the truth is you never know what the hell I'm going to bring you. Now tonight, I want to hearken back to the good old days, the golden days. I wax nostalgic from time to time. There's nothing wrong with it. I find it quite exhilarating, to be honest with you. I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much. When I was a kid, I grew up, there was a television in my house. I grew up in the 60s watching the Flintstones and I Dream of Jeannie and the Monkees and Batman and Star Trek and all of the 1960s television shows. That's what I grew up watching, okay? But they hit you with an oral and video double whammy, okay? There was no need to use your imagination. They fed it to you right from the spoon, right? I don't have a spoon in here. You were spoon-fed the entire story. There was no need to use your imagination. They provided the background music, they provided the visuals, they provided the audio. And all you did was sit by and munch your potato chips while you watched these stories transpire. When my mom was young, televisions weren't in every household. What they had in their day were radio programs, and there were some fantastic radio programs. There were comedy shows, Mom, Pa Kettle. There were just detective shows. The Shadow Knows. There was Dick Tracy. There was everything under the sun was on the radio. But because it was on the radio, you had to use your imagination to visualize the story. They had 5, 6, 7, 10 actors in the studio speaking into the radio, playing character parts. But because you didn't have a visual stimulus, your mind, you pictured it. You could be sitting listening to the radio, and your little brother might be right next to you. Your little sister or your older sister could be next to you, and all three of you are listening intently to this radio program. And all of you are visualizing something different than the next guy. I love that. I love using my imagination. That's why I loved reading books. When I would read books, you visualize what... I used to love stories about, the pioneers, stuff like that. The early settlers, fictional stories, but stories nonetheless. I thrived on it. I loved it. I loved it. My mom, when I was young, you've all heard of Time magazine. Well, Time magazine has an offshoot called Time Life Books. And they put out wonderful historic memories, their memories, not the real memories, but, memories nonetheless of important things, important historical times, etc., etc. One thing that Time magazine did do, and they did do this right, okay? They used to have a thing called Time Life Books, and an offshoot of Time Life Books was Time Life Records. When I was a kid in the 60s, my mom sent away for a 6-record set. A 6-record set of the old-time radio programs. Now, it wasn't all of the programming. But it was a nice slice of life showing what they used to listen to. And my mom described to me that, when they were kids, in the early 40s, every night of the week or certain nights of the week, there would be a specific radio program that they loved, that they would never miss, that they had to hear. And they always left you with a cliffhanger. Which made you tune in next week. Tonight, I'm going to do something right along those lines. I'm going to use my dulcet tones I'm going to use my voice to the best of my ability to entertain you. And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. I want you to use your little vivid imagination when we do this. That's all I'm asking. Close your eyes. Listen, I'm going to take myself off of the camera, and I'm just going to put up my logo, because all I want you to hear is my voice. I want it to be like the old 1940s radio programs. And I want you to visualize the stories as they come into context. I think this is going to be fun. I'm actually very all day I was excited about this. I've got 2 stories picked out. I have to be honest. I hope we have enough time for both of them. But what's great about this is if you're tired tonight and you're just laying in bed on your pillow, this is perfect. Just take your phone and position it on the nightstand nearby where you can hear my voice, and your brother Zoe is going to take you on a little trip. I'm going to take you on a little trip just like the good old days. Just like the good old days. Speaking of the good old days, I spent a little time today at lunchtime. Making a new video. And I'm going to play this now. Instead of the normal boring break that you get to see each and every time, I'm trying to spice it up. I'm trying to keep it fresh, keep it exciting. But when you work 60, 70 hours a week, son of a gun. So that's what happened to me on Sunday night. That's why there was no Sunday night program. This past Saturday, I had the most wonderful time with my sailors. You guys just blew me away. I think I had the single largest gold pill donation ever in mystery ship history. And everything just flowed. Song after song after song, and we were laughing, we were joking, we were having a good time, and I was so high on life when the show ended that I went in and I wanted to lay down and take an afternoon nap, and I couldn't. And then Saturday night, when I went to go to sleep, I just couldn't fall asleep. I was awake Saturday night until like 2:30 in the morning. Sunday comes around. I can't help it. I get up at 4 o'clock every day. I slept in a little bit. I think I got up at 6 o'clock on Sunday. I thought to myself, well, you know what? It's Sunday afternoon. I'm going to take a little nap. And about 1:30 in the afternoon, I laid down. And I just fell asleep. And my damn phone rang. And it woke me up. And I really wasn't in the mood. I was tired. I was cranky. I wasn't in the mood to talk to anybody. So I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. And I tried to go back to sleep. And I couldn't. And it wasn't until like 5 in the afternoon when I finally freaking dozed off. Then I wake up at 5 minutes to 6, and I'm supposed to be on the air at 6. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm so tired. I can't think. I'm punch drunk. So that's why there was no show Sunday night. I don't take missing shows lightly. I really do not like to miss a show. But Zo's tank was empty, folks. The tank was empty. The cupboard was bare. What I decided is I was going to make... Thank you, Val Hall. Thank you very, very much, darling. We are going to have a phenomenal show tonight. This is going to be mind-blowingly cool. I want you to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, because it's going to be very special. I want you to just use your imagination, lay back on a pillow somewhere, let your brother Zo's voice take you away to a faraway place. I want you to imagine the scenery as you hear me describing it. Okay? The stories I have chosen are ripe with adjectives. Let your mind wander. Will you? Let your mind wander tonight? This will be a lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun. All right. Let me go here, and we're going to have a short break. And when we come back, Zoso's radio program will commence right after this. Are you ready? wasn't so bad, was it? That wasn't so bad. Alrighty, folks, it is time. I'm on this end, and I'm trying to visualize each and every one of you doing what you're doing. Having been to many of your homes and visited many of you in person, I'm hoping that you are just like relaxing. I can kind of see Bad Zoot all sprawled out on her bed with a pillow and her phone next to her, or perhaps she's down at the kitchen table. It doesn't matter. I know that each and every one of you probably have an easy chair. If you do, if you have an easy chair in the living room, I want you to just kick your feet up, relax, close your eyes, and just listen. Just listen to what your brother Zoe has to share with you this evening. I'm going to take you far, far away in Mystery Ship Land. Are you ready? Are you ready? All right, give me half a second. I have to turn off this one heater because it's just blasting me. It's blasting me and cooking me. It's so freaking cold in this garage, but I'm actually warming up. I'm overheating. Give me half a second. Oh, that is so much better. So much better. So much better. Okay. All right, you lurkers over at... I see you lurkers over at Rumble. I'm very glad to have you. Mystery shippers over at YouTube, welcome. Pilled Foxhole, are you ready? Val Hall, she says she can't relax. She's modding 3 channel. Well, you take it upon yourself, sister. You take it upon yourself. We've got Matty F&B. Good to see you, buddy. He's hanging out over at Twitch. Great to have you along. We've got the champions all tuned in over at D Live. Are you ready, folks? Your brother Zoe is going to take you on a little tour of your mind. Alrighty then. Alrighty then. Here we go. Sit back. Relax. The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with a fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather in the square, between the post office and the bank, around 10 o'clock. In some towns, there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days and had to be started on June 26th. But in this village, where there were only about 300 people, the whole lottery took only about 2 hours, so it could begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be through in time to allow the villagers to get home for a noon dinner. The children assembled first, of course. School was recently over for the summer, and the feeling of liberty sat uneasily on most of them. They tended to gather together quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play, and their talk was still of the classroom and the teacher and of books and reprimands. Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example. Selecting the smoothest and roundest stones, Bobby and Harry Jones and Dickie Delacroix, the villagers pronounced his name Delacroix, eventually made a great pile of stones in one corner of the square and guarded it against the raids of the other boys. The girls stood aside, talking among themselves, looking over their shoulders at the boys, and the very small children rolled in the dust or clung to the hands of their older brothers and sisters. Soon the men began to gather, surveying their own children, speaking of planting and rain, tractors and taxes. They stood together away from the pile of stones in the corner, and their jokes were quiet, and they smiled rather than laughed. The women, wearing faded house dresses and sweaters, came shortly after the menfolk. They greeted one another and exchanged bits of gossip as they went to join their husbands. Soon the women, standing by their husbands, began to call to their children, and the children came reluctantly, having to be called 4 or 5 times. Bobby Martin ducked under his mother's grasping hand and ran, laughing, back to the pile of stones. His father spoke up sharply, and Bobby came quickly and took his place between his father and his oldest brother. The lottery was conducted, as were the square dances, the teenage club, the Halloween program, by Mr. Summers, who had time and energy to devote to civic activities. He was round-faced, jovial man. He ran the coal business. People were sorry for him because he had no children, and his wife was a scold. When he arrived in the square carrying the black wooden box, there was a murmur of conversation among the villagers, and he waved and called, "Little late today, folks." The postmaster, Mr. Graves, followed him, carrying a 3-legged stool, and the stool was put in the center of the square, and Mr. Summers set the black box down on top of it. The villagers kept their distance, leaving a space between themselves and the stool, and when Mr. Summers said, "Some of you fellows want to give me a hand?" there was a hesitation before 2 men, Mr. Martin and his oldest son, Baxter, came forward to hold the box steady on the stool while Mr. Summers stirred up the papers inside it. The original paraphernalia for the lottery had been lost long ago, and the black box was now resting on the stool, had been put into use even before Old Man Warner, the oldest man in town, was born. Mr. Summers spoke frequently to the villagers about making a new box, but no one liked to upset even as much tradition as was represented by the black box. There was a story that the present box had been made with some pieces of the box that had preceded it, the one that had been constructed when the first people settled down to make a village here. Every year, after the lottery, Mr. Summers began talking again about a new box, but every year the subject was allowed to fade off without anything being done. The black box grew shabbier each year. By now it was no longer completely black, but splintered badly along one side to show the original wood color, and in some places faded or stained. Mr. Martin and his oldest son, Baxter, held the black box securely on the stool until Mr. Summers had stirred the papers thoroughly with his hand. Because so much of the ritual had been forgotten or discarded, Mr. Summers had been successful in having slips of paper substituted for the chips of wood that had been used for generations. Chips of wood, Mr. Summers had argued, had been all very well when the village was tiny, but now the population was more than 300 and likely to keep on growing. Well, it was necessary to put something that would fit more easily into the black box. The night before the lottery, Mr. Summers and Mr. Graves made up slips of paper and put them into the box, and it was then taken to the safe of Mr. Summers' coal company and locked up until Mr. Summers was ready to take it to the square the next morning. The rest of the year, the box was put away, sometimes one place, sometimes another. It had spent 1 year in Mr. Graves' barn and another year underfoot in the post office. Sometimes it was set on a shelf in the Martin grocery and left there. There was a great deal of fussing to be done before Mr. Summers declared the lottery open. There were lists to make up of heads of families, heads of households in each family, members of each household in each family. There was the proper swearing in of Mr. Summers by the postmaster. And the official of the lottery, at one time, people remembered, there had been a recital of some sort, performed by the official of the lottery, a perfunctory, tuneless chant that had been rattled off duly each year. Some people believed that the official of the lottery used to stand just so when he said or sang it. Others believed he was supposed to walk among the people. But years and years ago, this part of the ritual had been allowed to lapse. There had been also a ritual salute, which the official of the lottery had to use in addressing each person who came up to draw from the box. But this was also changed in time, and now it was felt necessary only for the official to speak to each person approaching. Mr. Summers was very good at all this. In his clean white shirt and blue jeans, with one hand resting carelessly on the black box, he seemed very proper and important as he talked interminably to Mr. Graves and the Martins. Just as Mr. Summers finally left off talking and turned to the assembled villagers, Mrs. Hutchinson came hurriedly along the path to the square, her sweater thrown over her shoulders, and slid into place in the back of the crowd. "Clean forgot what day it was," she said to Mrs. Delacroix, who stood next to her, and they both laughed softly. "Thought my old man was out back stacking wood," Mrs. Hutchinson went on. "Then I looked out the window, and the kids was gone, and then I remembered it was the 27th and came a-running." She dried her hands on her apron, and Mrs. Delacroix said, "You're in time, though. They're still talking way up there." Mrs. Hutchinson craned her neck to see through the crowd and found her husband and children standing near the front. She tapped Mrs. Delacroix on the arm as a farewell and began to make her way through the crowd. The people separated good-humoredly to let her through. 2 or 3 people said, in voices just loud enough to be heard across the crowd, "Here comes your Mrs. Hutchinson," and "Bill, she made it after all." Mrs. Hutchinson reached her husband, and Mr. Summers, who had been waiting, said cheerfully, "Thought we were going to have to get on without you, Tessie." Mrs. Hutchinson said, grinning, "Wouldn't have me leave my dishes in the sink now, would you, Joe?" with a soft laughter that ran through the crowd as the people stirred back into position after Mrs. Hutchinson's arrival. "Well now," Mr. Summers said soberly, "guess we'd better get started, get this over with, so's we can go back to work. Anybody ain't here?" "Dunbar," several people said. "Dunbar, Dunbar." Mr. Summers consulted his list. "Clyde Dunbar," he said. "That's right. He's broke his leg, hasn't he? Who's drawing for him?" "Me, I guess," said a woman, and Mrs. Summers turned to look at her. "Wife draws for her husband," Mrs. Summers said. "Don't you have a grown boy to do it for you, Janie?" Although Mr. Summers and everyone else in the village knew the answer perfectly well, it was the business of the official of the lottery to ask such questions formally. Mr. Summers waited, with an expression of polite interest, while Mrs. Dunbar answered, "Horace is not but 16 yet. Mrs. Dunbar said regretfully. Guess I got to fill in for the old man this year. Right, Mr. Summers said. He made a note on the list he was holding. Then he said, Watson boy drawing this year? A tall boy in the crowd raised his hand. Here, he said. I'm drawing for my mother and me. He blinked his eyes nervously and ducked his head as several voices in the crowd said things like, Good fellow, Jack, and glad to see your mother's got a man to do it. Well, Mr. Summers said, guess that's everyone. Old man Warner make it? Here, a voice said, and Mr. Summers nodded. A sudden hush fell over the crowd as Mr. Summers cleared his throat and looked at the list. All ready? He called. Now, I'll read the names. Heads of families first. And the men come up here and take a paper out of the box. You keep the paper folded in your hand without looking at it until everybody has a turn. Everybody clear? The people had done it so many times that they only half listened to the directions. Most of them were quiet, wetting their lips, not looking around. Then Mr. Summers raised one hand high and said, Adams. A man disengaged himself from the crowd and came forward. Hi, Steve, Mr. Summers said, and Mr. Adams said, Hi, Joe. They grinned at one another humorlessly and nervously. Then Mr. Adams reached into the black box and took out a folded paper. He held it firmly by one corner as he turned and went hastily back to his place in the crowd, where he stood a little apart from his family, not looking down at his hand. Allen, Mr. Summers said. Anderson. Bentham. Seems like there's no time at all between lotteries anymore, Mrs. Delacroix said to Mrs. Graves in the back row. Seems like we got through with the last one only last week. Time sure goes fast, says Mrs. Graves. Clark. Delacroix. There goes my old man, Mrs. Delacroix said. She held her breath while her husband went forward. Dunbar, Mr. Summers said, and Mrs. Dunbar went steadily to the box, while one of the women said, Go on, Janie, and another said, There she goes. We're next, said Mrs. Graves. She watched while Mr. Graves came from around the side of the box, greeted Mr. Summers gravely, and selected a slip of paper from the box. By now, all through the crowd, there were men holding small folded papers in their large hands, turning them over and over nervously. Mrs. Dunbar and her two sons stood together, Mrs. Dunbar holding the slip of paper. Harbert! Hutchinson! Get up there, Bill, Mrs. Hutchinson said, and the people near her laughed. Jones! They do say, Mr. Adams said to old man Warner, who stood next to him, that over in the North Village, they're talking of giving up the lottery. Old man Warner snorted. Pack of crazy fools, he said. Listening to the younger folks, nothing's good enough for them. Next thing you know, they'll be wanting to go back to living in caves, nobody work anymore, live that way for a while. Used to be a saying about lottery in June, corn be heaven soon. First thing you know, we'd all be eating stewed chickweed and acorns. There's always been a lottery, he added petulantly. Bad enough to see young Joe Summers up there joking with everybody. Some places have already quit lotteries, Mrs. Adams said. Nothing but trouble in that, old Warner said, stoutly. Pack of young fools. Martin. Bobby Martin watched over his father as he went forward. Overdyke. Percy. I wish they'd hurry, said Mrs. Dunbar to her older son. I wish they'd hurry. They're almost through, her son said. You get ready to run, tell Dad, Mrs. Dunbar said. Mr. Summers called his own name and then stepped forward precisely and selected a slip from the box. Then he called Warner. 77th year I've been in the lottery, old man Warner said as he went through the crowd. 77th time. Watson. A tall boy came awkwardly through the crowd. Someone said, "Don't be nervous, Jack." And Mr. Summers said, "Take your time, son." Zanini. After that, there was a long pause, a breathless pause, until Mr. Summers, holding his slip of paper in the air, said, "All right, fellows." For a minute, no one moved, and then all the slips of paper were opened. Suddenly, all the women began to speak at once, saying, "Who is it? Who's got it? Is it the Dunbars? Is it the Watsons?" Then the voices began to say, "It's Hutchinson. It's Bill. Bill Hutchinson's got it." "Go tell your father," Mrs. Dunbar said to her older son. People began to look around to see the Hutchinsons. Bill Hutchinson was standing quiet, staring down at the paper in his hand. Suddenly, Tessie Hutchinson shouted to Mr. Summers, "You didn't give him time enough to take any paper he wanted. I saw you. It wasn't fair." "Be a good sport, Tessie," Mrs. Delacroix said, and Mrs. Graves said, "All of us took the same chance." "Shut up, Tessie," Bill Hutchinson said. "Well, everyone," Mr. Summers said, "that was done pretty fast. And now we got to be hurrying a little more to get done in time." He consulted his next list. "Bill," he said, "you draw for the Hutchinson family. You got any other households in the Hutchinsons?" "There's Don and Eva," Mrs. Hutchinson said. "Make them take a chance." "Daughters draw for their husbands' families, Tessie. You know that as well as anybody else." "It wasn't fair," said Tessie. "I guess not, Joe," Bill Hutchinson said regretfully. "My daughter draws with her husband's family, and that's only fair. And I've got no other family except the kids." "Then, as far as drawing for families is concerned, it's you," Mr. Summers said in an explanation. "And as far as drawing for households is concerned, that's you too, right?" "Right," Bill Hutchinson said. "How many kids, Bill?" Mr. Summers asked formally. "3," Bill Hutchinson said. "There's Bill Jr., Nancy, and little Dave, and Tessie and me." "All right then," Mr. Summers said. "Harry, you got their tickets back?" Mr. Graves nodded and held up the slips of paper. "Put them in the box then," Mr. Summers directed. "Take Bill's and put it in." "I think we ought to start over," Mrs. Hutchinson said, quietly as she could. "I tell you it wasn't fair. You didn't give him time enough to choose. Everybody saw that." Mr. Graves had selected the 5 slips and put them in the box, and he dropped all the papers but those on the ground where the breeze caught them and lifted them off. "Listen, everybody," Mrs. Hutchinson was saying to the people around her. "Ready, Bill?" Mr. Summers asked, and Bill Hutchinson, with one quick glance around his wife and children, nodded. "Remember," Mr. Summers said, "take the slips and keep them folded until each person has taken one. Harry, you help little Dave." Mr. Graves took the hand of the little boy, who came willingly with him up to the box. "Take a paper out of the box, Davy," Mr. Summers said. Davy put his hand into the box and laughed. "Take just one paper," Mr. Summers said. "Harry, you hold it for him." Mr. Graves took the child's hand and removed the folded paper from the tight fist and held it while little Dave stood next to him and looked up at him wonderingly. "Nancy next," Mr. Summers said. Nancy was 12, and her school friends breathed heavily as she went forward, switching her skirt, and took a slip daintily from the box. "Bill Jr.," Mr. Summers said, and Billy, his face red and his feet over large, nearly knocked the box over as he got a paper out. "Tessie," Mr. Summers said. She hesitated for a moment, looking around her defiantly, and then set her lips and went up to the box. She snatched a paper out and held it behind her. "Bill," Mr. Summers said, and Bill Hutchinson reached into the box and felt around, bringing his hand out with the last slip of paper on it. The crowd was quiet. A girl whispered, "I hope it's not Nancy," and the sound of the whisper reached the edges of the crowd. "It's not the way it used to be," Old Man Warner said clearly. "People ain't the way they used to be." "All right," Mr. Summers said. "Open the papers. Harry, you open it for little Davy." Mr. Graves opened up the slip of paper, and there was a general sigh through the crowd as he held it up, and everyone could see that it was blank. Nancy and Bill Jr. opened theirs at the same time, and both beamed and laughed, turning around to the crowd and holding up their slips of paper above their heads. "Tessie," Mr. Summers said. There was a pause, and then Mr. Summers looked at Bill Hutchinson, and Bill unfolded his paper and showed it. It was blank. "It's Tessie," Mr. Summers said, and his voice was hushed. "Show us her paper, Bill." Bill went over to his wife and forced the slip of paper out of her hand. It had a black spot on it, the black spot Mr. Summers had made the night before with the heavy pencil in the coal company office. Mr. Hutchinson held it up, and there was a stir in the crowd. "All right, folks," Mr. Summers says, "let's finish quickly." Although the villagers had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stones. The pile of stones the boys had made earlier was ready. There were stones on the ground with blowing scraps of paper that had come out of the box. Mrs. Delacroix selected a stone so large she had to pick it up with both hands and turned to Mrs. Dunbar. "Come on," she said. "Hurry up." Mrs. Dunbar had small stones in both hands. She said, gasping for breath, "I can't run at all. You'll have to go ahead and I'll catch up with you." The children had stones already, and someone gave little Davy Hutchinson a few pebbles. Tessie Hutchinson was in the center of the cleared space by now, and she held her hands out desperately as the villagers moved in on her. "It isn't fair," she said. A stone hit her on the side of the head. Old Man Warner was saying, come on, everyone." Steve Adams was in the front of the crowd of villagers with Mrs. Graves beside him. "It isn't fair. It isn't right," Mrs. Hutchinson screamed. And then they were upon her. Well, that's story number one for this evening. That is your story number one for this evening. Oh, mammy. What are you guys thinking so far? Is this a little different? Something a little unusual? Something you probably weren't quite ready for? Well. Yes. Story number one. Story number one, people. We are going to have a second little story coming up after this. Oh, Somebody said they had to go for a little bit, and when they came back, well, such a depressing story traumatized me as an eighth grader, Spud said. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes, indeed. Ah, yes. All right. Well, we've got time for another little break here. Another little break in the action. I believe we'll go with this one. All right. We will see you. That almost put you to sleep, huh, Tallywag? All righty. All righty then. We'll be back on the other side of this here message. Right here. Right here. Right here.
My fellow citizens, our country is in danger, but not to be despaired of. On you depend the fortunes of America. We, the Americans of today, are ready to act worthy of ourselves, ready to do what must be done to ensure happiness and liberty for ourselves, our children, and our children's children. We are a nation under God, and I believe God intended for us to be free. The crisis we're facing today, it does require, however, our best effort and our willingness to believe in ourselves and to believe in our capacity to perform great deeds, to believe that together, with God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans.
this. So this is what happens when they try to keep us out.
No, I love it.
We are. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it.
And we didn't take it. No, we didn't. We did not. It was actually a very wonderful day. A day I'll not likely forget. My dear brothers and sisters down there met me, and we had a wonderful time together. Seriously, a good time. Yes. Hey, by the way, friends, Father Larry is going to be posting links for two wonderful people. One is our dear brother Gary Flessner. We're trying to put together a give, send, go for Gary. He's going to have a couple of needs just to get him going. He needs like an iPad notebook kind of a deal. And another is for a dear brother, Inner G, who there already is a give, send, go for him. Folks, if you can help in any way with either of those gentlemen, it would just be wonderful. It would be wonderful. All right. We are moving on to the second story in tonight's radio dramas. Yes, your brother Zoe is trying to do something just a little different. Just a little different. Just this much different. You like listening to short stories? Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Norma Williams. Black Orchid, how are you doing, little lady? Wonderful to see you. Hope everything is good in your world. All right. Girl Patriot says, can I open my eyes yet? Can I open my eyes yet? I hope so, little lady. I hope so. All right. All right. Tonight, your brother Zoe is hearkening back to the days of radio dramas when you used to sit around and listen to the radio and let your imagination run wild. Your imagination would run wild. There was no television to guide you. You just used your brain to scare the dickens out of yourself. All right. I've got a second story up for you right now. Are we ready? Are we ready to take another little ride? Another little ride down the old-time radio bandwagon. Let me get this pulled up over here. I'm trying to keep up with my people, make sure everybody's happy, make sure everybody's good. Oh, boy. All right. All right. Okay. I want you to sit back. I want you to relax. If you've just tuned in, your brother Zoe is going to read a story to you like back in the 1940s when you used to tune in the radio and listen to the announcers. I've got another interesting little story coming your way. Are we ready? Just sit back, relax, put your head in the pillow, let your brother Zoe fill your noggin, and I want you to let your imagination run wild. Are you ready? Are you ready? This is going to be good, people. This is going to be good. Okay, here we go. Story number 2. When you're dead, Samantha says. You don't have to brush your teeth. When you're dead, Claire says, you live in a box and it's always dark, but you're not ever afraid. Claire and Samantha are identical twins. Their combined age is 20 years, 4 months, and 6 days. Claire is better at being dead than Samantha. The babysitter yawns, covering her mouth with a long white hand. I said brush your teeth and it's time for bed, she says. She sits cross-legged on the flowered bedspread between them. She's been teaching them a card game called Pounce, which involves 3 decks of cards, one for each of them. Samantha's deck is missing the Jack of Spades and the 2 of Hearts, and Claire keeps cheating. The babysitter wins anyway. There are still flecks of dried shaving cream and toilet paper on her arms. It's hard to tell how old she is. First they thought she must be a grown-up, but now she hardly looks older than they are. Samantha has forgotten the babysitter's name. Claire's face is stubborn. When you're dead, she says, you stay up all night long. When you're dead, the babysitter says, it's always very cold and damp, and you have to be very, very quiet, or else the specialist will get you. This house is haunted, Claire says. I know it is, says the babysitter. I used to live here. Something is creeping up the stairs. Something is standing outside the door. Something is sobbing, sobbing in the dark. Something is sighing across the floor. Claire and Samantha are spending the summer with their father in the house called 8 Chimneys. Their mother is dead. She's been dead exactly 282 days. Their father is writing a history of 8 Chimneys and of the poet Charles Cheetham Rash, who lived here at the turn of the century and who ran away to sea when he was 13 and returned when he was 38. He married, fathered a child, and wrote 3 volumes of bad, obscure poetry and an even worse and more obscure novel, The One Who Is Watching Me Through the Window, before disappearing again in 1907, this time for good. Samantha and Claire's father says that some of the poetry is actually quite readable, and at least the novel isn't very long. When Samantha asked him why he was writing about Rash, he replied that no one else had, and why didn't she and Samantha go play outside? When she pointed out that she was Samantha, he just scowled and said, how could he be expected to tell them apart when they both wore blue jeans and flannel shirts, and why couldn't one of them dress all in green and the other in pink? Claire and Samantha prefer to play inside. 8 Chimneys was as big as a castle, but dustier and darker than Samantha imagines a castle would be. The house is open to the public, and during the day people, families, drive along Blue Ridge Highway and will stop to tour the grounds and the first story. The third story belongs to Claire and Samantha. Sometimes they play explorers, and sometimes they follow the caretaker as he gives tours to visitors. After a few weeks, they have memorized his lecture, and they mouth it along with him. They help him sell postcards and copies of Rash's poetry to the tourist families who come into the little gift shop. When the mothers smile at them, they say how sweet they are. They stare back and don't say anything at all. The dim light in the house makes the mothers look pale and flickery and tired. They leave 8 Chimneys, mothers and families, looking not quite as real as they did before they paid their admissions, and of course Claire and Samantha will never see them again, so maybe they aren't real. Better to stay inside the house, they want to tell the families. And if you must leave, go straight to your cars. The caretaker says the woods aren't safe. Their father stays in the library on the second story all morning, typing, and in the afternoon he takes long walks. He takes his pocket recorder along with him and a hip flask of old Kentucky, but not Samantha and Claire. The caretaker of Ape Chimneys is Mr. Colsack. His left leg is noticeably shorter than his right. Short black hairs grow out of his ears and nostrils, and there's no hair at all on the top of his head, but he's given Samantha and Claire permission to explore the whole of the house. It was Mr. Colsack who told them there are copperheads in the woods and that the house is haunted. He says they're all ghosts and snakes, pretty bad-tempered lot, and that Samantha and Claire should stick to the marked trails and stay out of the attic. Mr. Colsack can't tell the twins apart, even if their father can't. Claire's eyes are gray like a cat's. Claire's eyes are gray like a cat's fur, he says, but Samantha's are gray like the ocean when it has been raining. Samantha and Claire went walking in the woods on the second day that they were at Eight Chimneys. They saw something. Samantha thought it was a woman, but Claire said it was a snake. The staircase that goes up to the attic has been locked. They peeked through the keyhole, but it was too dark to see anything. And so he had a wife, and they say she was real pretty. There was another man who wanted to go with her. At first she wouldn't, because she was afraid of her husband, and then she did. Her husband found out, and they say he killed a snake and got some of the snake's blood and put it on some whiskey and gave it to her. And she learned this from an on-island man who had been on the ship with him. And in about 6 months, the snakes created in her. And she got between her meat and the skin, and they said you could just see the snakes running up and down her legs. They said she was just hollowed to the top of her body, and it kept on like that till she died. Now my daddy said he saw it. That is an oral history of Eight Chimneys. Eight Chimneys is over 200 years old. It's named for the 8 chimneys, which are each big enough that Samantha and Claire can both fit in one fireplace. The chimneys are red brick, and on each floor there are 8 fireplaces, making a total of 24. Samantha imagines the chimney stacks stretching out like stout red tree trunks all the way through the slate roof of the house. Beside each fireplace is a heavy black fire log and a set of wrought iron pokers shaped like snakes. Claire and Samantha pretend to duel with the snake pokers before they stick their faces in, and they can feel the air rushing damply upward like a river. The flue smells old and sooty and wet like stones from a river. Their bedroom was once the nursery. They sleep together in a poster bed which resembles a ship with 4 masts. It smells of mothballs. Charles Cheatham Rash slept there when he was a little boy, and also his daughter. She disappeared when her father did. It might have been gambling debts. They may have moved on to New Orleans. She was 14 years old, Mr. Colsack said. What was her name? Claire asked. What happened to her mother? Samantha wanted to know. Mr. Colsack closed his eyes with an almost wink. Mrs. Rash had died the year before her husband, and her daughter disappeared, he said. of a mysterious wasting disease. He can't remember the name of the poor girl, he said. 8 Chimneys has exactly 100 windows, all still with the original wavy panes of hand-blown glass. With so many windows, Samantha thinks 8 Chimneys should always be full of light, but instead the trees press close against the house so that the rooms on the first and second floor, even the third-story rooms, are green and dim, as if Samantha and Claire are underwater. This is the light that makes tourists into ghosts. In the morning, and again towards evening, the fog settles in around the house. Sometimes it is gray like Claire's eyes, and sometimes it's more gray like Samantha's. I met a woman in the wood. Her lips were 2 red snakes. She smiled at me, her eyes lewd and burning like a fire. A few nights ago, the wind was sighing in the nursery chimney. Their father had already tucked them in and turned off the light. Claire dared Samantha to stick her head into the fireplace, into the dark. And so she did. The cold, wet air licked at her face, and it almost sounded like voices talking now, muttering. She couldn't quite make out what they were saying. Their father had been drinking steadily since they arrived at 8 Chimneys. He never mentions their mother. One evening, they heard him shouting in the library, and when they came downstairs, there was a large, sticky stain on the desk where a glass of whiskey had been knocked over. He was looking at me, he said, through the window. It had orange eyes. Samantha and Claire refrained from pointing out that the library is on the second story. At night, their father's breath has been sweet from drinking, and he is spending more and more time in the woods and less in the library. At dinner, usually hot dogs and baked beans from a can, which they eat off paper plates in the first-floor dining room beneath the Austrian chandelier, which has exactly 632 leaded crystals shaped like teardrops. And their father recites the poetry of Charles Cheetham Rash, which neither Samantha nor Claire cares for. He had been reading the ship's diaries that Rash kept, and he says he has discovered proof in them that Rash's most famous poem, The Specialist's Hat, is not a poem at all. And in any case, Rash didn't write it. It is something that one of the men in the whaler used to say to conjure up a whale. Rash simply copied it down and stuck an end on it and said it was his. The man was from Mulatupu, which is a place neither Samantha nor Claire had ever heard of. Their father says that the man was supposed to be some sort of magician, but he drowned shortly before Rash and came back to 8 Chimneys. Their father says the other sailors wanted to throw the magician's chest overboard, but Rash persuaded them to let him keep it until he could be put ashore and with the chest off the coast of North Carolina. The specialist's hat makes a noise like an agouti. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a collared peccary. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a white-lipped peccary. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a tapir. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a rabbit. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a squirrel. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a cursoro. The specialist's hat moans like a whale in the water. The specialist's hat moans like the wind in my wife's hair. The specialist's hat makes a noise like a snake. I have hung the hat of the specialist on my wall. The reason that Claire and Samantha have a babysitter is that their father met a woman in the woods. He is going tonight to meet her, and they're going to have a picnic supper and look at the stars. This is the time of year when the Perseids can be seen falling across the sky in the night. Their father said that he has been walking with the woman every afternoon. She is a distant relative of Rash, and besides, he said, he needs a night off and some grown-up conversation. Mr. Kolisak won't stay in the house after dark, but he agreed to find someone to look after Samantha and Claire. When their father couldn't find Mr. Kolisak, the babysitter showed up at precisely 7 o'clock. The babysitter, whose name neither twin quite caught, wears a blue cotton dress with short, floaty sleeves. Both Samantha and Claire think she is pretty in an old-fashioned sort of way. They were in the library with their father looking up Mulatupu in the red leather atlas when she arrived. She didn't knock on the front door. She simply walked in and up the stairs as if she knew right where to find them. Their father kissed them goodbye, a hasty smack, and told them to be good, and that he would take them into town on the weekend to see a Disney film. They went to the window to watch as he walked out of the house and into the woods. Already it was getting dark, and there were fireflies, tiny yellow hot sparks in the air. When their father had quite disappeared into the trees, they turned around and stared at the babysitter instead. She raised one eyebrow. "Well," she said, "what sort of games do you play?" "Widdershins around the chimneys, once, twice again. The spokes click like a clock in the bicycle, and they tickle down the days of the life of man." First, they played Go Fish. Then they played Crazy Eights. Then they made the babysitter into a mummy by putting shaving cream from their father's bathroom on her arms and legs and wrapping her in toilet paper. She is the best babysitter they've ever had. At 9:30, she tried to put them to bed. Neither Claire nor Samantha wanted to go to bed, so they began to play the dead game. The dead game is a let's pretend that they have been playing every day for 274 days now, but never in front of their father or any other adult. When they are dead, they're allowed to do anything they want to. They can even fly by jumping off the nursery beds and just waving their arms. Someday this will work if they practice hard enough. The dead game has 3 rules. Rule number 1, numbers are significant. The twins keep a list of important numbers in a green address book that belonged to their mother. Mr. Kolisak's tour has been a good source of significant amounts of tallies. They are writing a tragic history of numbers. Number 2. Rule number 2. The twins don't play the dead game in front of grown-ups. They have been summing up the babysitter, and they have decided that she doesn't count. They tell her the rules. Rule number 3 is the best and the most important rule. When you are dead, you don't have to be afraid of anything. Samantha and Claire aren't sure who the specialist is, but they aren't afraid of him. To become dead, they hold their breath while counting to 35, which is as high as their mother ever taught them to count. You never lived here, Claire says. Mr. Kolosak lives here. Not at night, said the babysitter. This was my bedroom when I was little. Really? Samantha says. Prove it. The babysitter gives Samantha and Claire a look as if she is measuring them. How old, how smart, how brave, how tall. Then she nods. The wind is in the flue, and in the dim nursery light they can see little strands of fog seeping out of the fireplace. Go stand in the chimney, she instructs them. Stick your hand as far up as you can. There's a little hole on the left side with a key in it. Samantha looks at Claire, who says, Go ahead. Claire is 15 minutes and some uncounted seconds older than Samantha, and therefore gets to tell Samantha what to do. Samantha remembers the muttering voices and then reminds herself that she is dead. She goes over to the fireplace and ducks inside. When Samantha stands up in the chimney, she can only see the very edge of the room. She can see the fringe of the mothy blue rug, one bed leg, and beside it Claire's foot, swinging back and forth like a metronome. Claire's shoelace has become undone, and there's a Band-Aid on her ankle. It all looks very pleasant and peaceful from inside the chimney, like a dream, and for a moment she almost wishes she didn't have to be dead. But it's safer, really. She sticks her left hand up as far as she can reach, trailing along the crumbly wall until she feels an indentation. She thinks about spiders and severed fingers and rusty razor blades, and then she reaches inside. She keeps her eyes lowered, focused on the corner of the room and Claire's twitchy foot. Inside the hole, there is a tiny cold key, its teeth facing outward. She pulls it out and ducks back into the room. She wasn't lying, she tells Claire. Of course I wasn't lying, the babysitter says. When you're dead, you're not allowed to tell lies. Unless you want to, says Claire. Samantha and Claire have gone to camp for 3 weeks every summer since they were 7. This year, their father didn't ask them if they wanted to go back, and after discussing it, they decided that it was just as well. They didn't want to have to explain to all their friends how they were half orphans now. They used to be envied because they are identical twins. They don't want to be pitiful. It has not even been a year, but Samantha realized she is forgetting what her mother looked like. Not her mother's face so much as the way she smelled, which was something like grass and something like Chanel No. 5. And like something else, too. She can't remember whether her mother had gray eyes like her or gray eyes like Claire. She doesn't dream about her mother anymore, but she does dream about Prince Charming, a bay whom she once rode in the horse show at her camp. In the dream, Prince Charming did not smell like a horse at all. He smelled like Chanel No. 5. When she is dead, she can have all the horses she wants, and they all smell like Chanel No. 5. Where does the key go, says Samantha. The babysitter holds out her hand. To the attic. We don't really need it, but taking the stairs is easier than the chimney, At least the first time. Aren't you going to make us go to bed? Claire says. The babysitter ignores Claire. My father used to lock me in the attic when I was little, but I didn't mind. There was a bicycle up there, and I used to ride it around the chimneys until my mother let me out again. Do you know how to ride a bicycle? Of course, Claire says. If you ride fast enough, the specialist can't catch you. What's the specialist? Samantha says. Bicycles are okay, but horses can go faster. The specialist wears a hat, says the babysitter. The hat makes noises. She doesn't say anything else. The attic is somehow bigger and lonelier than Samantha and Claire thought it would be. The babysitter's key opens the locked door at the end of the hallway, revealing a narrow set of stairs. She waves them ahead and upwards. It isn't as dark in the attic as they had imagined. The oaks that block the light and make the first 3 stories so dim and green and mysterious during the day don't reach all the way up. Extravagant moonlight, dusty and pale, streams in the angled dormer windows. It lights the length of the attic, which is wide enough to hold a softball game in, and lined with trunks where Samantha imagines people could sit. Could be hiding, could be watching. The ceiling slopes down, impaled upon the 8 thick-waisted chimney stacks. The chimneys seem too alive, somehow to be contained in this empty, neglected place. They thrust most angrily through the roof and attic floor. In the moonlight, they look like they're breathing. They're so beautiful, she says. Which chimney is the nursery chimney? Claire says. The babysitter points to the nearest right-hand stack. That one, she says. It runs up through the ballroom on the first floor, the library, and the nursery. Hanging from a nail on the nursery chimney is a long black object. It looks lumpy and heavy, as if it were full of things. The babysitter takes it down, twirls it on her finger. There are holes in the black thing, and it whistles mournfully as she spins it. The specialist's hat, she says. That doesn't look like a hat, says Claire. It doesn't look like anything at all. She goes to look through the boxes and trunks that are stacked against the far wall. It's a special hat, the babysitter says. It's not supposed to look like anything, but it can sound like anything you imagine. My father made it. Our father writes books, Samantha says. My father did too. The babysitter hangs the black hat on the nail. It curls blackly against the chimney. Samantha stares at it. It nickers at her. He was a very bad poet, but he was worse at magic. Last summer, Samantha wished more than anything she could have a horse. She thought she would have given up anything for one. Even being a twin was not as good as having a horse. She still doesn't have a horse, but she doesn't have a mother either, so she can't help but wondering if it's her fault. The hat nickers again, or maybe it's the wind in the chimney. What happened to him, Claire says. After he made the hat, the specialist came and took him away. I hid in the nursery chimney while it was looking for him, and it didn't find me. Weren't you scared? There's a clattering, shivering, clicking noise. Claire has found the babysitter's bike and is dragging it towards them by the handlebars. The babysitter shrugs. Rule number 3, she says. Claire snatches the hat off the nail. I'm the specialist, she says, putting the hat on her head. It falls over her eyes, the floppy, shapeless brim sewn with asymmetrical buttons that flash and catch the moonlight like teeth. Samantha looks again and sees that they are teeth. Without counting, she suddenly knows that there are exactly 52 teeth on the hat, and that they are teeth of agoutis, or curceros, of white-lipped peccaries, and the wife of Charles Cheatham Rash. The chimneys are moaning, and Claire's voice booms hourly out beneath the hat. Run away, or I'll catch you and eat you. Samantha and the babysitter run away laughing as Claire mounts the rusty, noisy bicycle and pedals madly after them. She rings the bicycle bell as she rides, and the specialist's hat bobs up and down on her head. It spits like a cat. The bell is shrill and thin, and the bike wails and shrieks. It leans first to the right and then to the left. Claire's knobby knees stick out on either side like makeshift counterweights. Claire weaves in and out of the chimneys, chasing Samantha and the babysitter. Samantha is slow, turning to look behind. As Claire approaches, she keeps one hand on the handlebars and stretches out the other hand towards Samantha. Just as she is about to grab Samantha, the babysitter turns back and plucks the hat off Claire's head. Shit, the babysitter says and drops it. There is a drop of blood forming on the fleshy part of the babysitter's hand, black in the moonlight where the specialist's hat has bitten her. Claire dismounts, giggling. Samantha watches as the specialist's hat rolls away. It gathers speed, veering across the attic floor, and disappears, thumping down the stairs. Go get it, Claire says. You can be the specialist this time. No, the babysitter says, sucking at her palm. It's time for bed. When they go down the stairs, there's no sign of the specialist's hat. They brush their teeth, climb into the ship bed, pull the covers up over their heads. The babysitter stirs between their feet. When you're dead, Samantha says, do you still get tired and have to go to sleep? Do you have dreams? When you're dead, the babysitter says, everything's a lot easier. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to. You don't have to have a name. You don't have to remember. You don't even have to breathe. She shows them exactly what she means. When she has time to think about it, and now she has all the time in the world to think, Samantha realizes, with a small pang, that she is now stuck indefinitely between 10 and 11 years old, stuck with Claire and the babysitter. She considers this. The number 10 is pleasing and round like a beach ball, but all in all, it hasn't been an easy year. She wonders what 11 would have been like. Sharper, like needles maybe. She has chosen to be dead instead. She hopes that she's made the right decision. She wonders if her mother would have decided to be dead instead of dead if she could have. Last year, they were learning fractions in school when her mother died. Fractions remind Samantha of herds of wild horses, piebalds and pintos and palominos. There were so many of them, and they are, well, fractious and unruly. When you think you have one under control, it throws up its head and tosses you off. Claire's favorite number is 4, which she says is a tail. Skinny boy, tall, skinny boy. Samantha doesn't care for boys all that much. She likes numbers. Take the number 8, for instance, which can be more than one thing at once. Look at it one way, 8 looks like a bent woman with curvy hair. But if you lay it down on its side, it looks like a snake curled up with its tail in its mouth. This is sort of like the difference between being dead and being dead. Maybe when Samantha is tired of one, she'll try the other. On the lawn, under the oak trees, she hears someone calling her name. Samantha climbs out of bed and goes to the nursery window. She looks through the wavy glass. It's Mr. Colisac. "Samantha! Claire!" he calls up to her. "Are you guys all right? Is your father there?" Samantha can almost see in the moonlight shining through him. "They're always locking me in the tool room," he says. "Are you there, Samantha? Claire? Girls?" The babysitter comes and stands beside Samantha. The babysitter put her finger to her lip. Claire's eyes glitter at them from the dark bed. Samantha doesn't say anything, but she waves at Mr. Cul-de-sac. The babysitter waves too. Maybe he can see them waving. After a little while, he stops shouting and goes away. "Be careful," the babysitter says. "He'll be coming soon. It will be coming soon." She takes Samantha's hand and leads her back to bed where Claire is waiting. They all sit and wait. Time passes, but they don't get tired, and they don't get any older. The front door opens on the first floor, and Samantha, Claire, and the babysitter hear someone creeping up the stairs. "Be quiet," the babysitter says. "It's the specialist." Samantha and Claire are quiet. The nursery is dark, and the wind cackles like fire in the fireplace. "Claire? Samantha? Samantha? Claire?" The specialist's voice is blurry and wet. It sounds like their father's voice, but that's because the hat can imitate any noise, any voice. "Are you still awake?" "Quick," the babysitter says. "It's time to go up to the attic and hide." Claire and Samantha slip out from under the covers and dress quickly and silently. They follow her. Without speech, without breathing, she pulls them into the safety of the chimney. It is too dark to see, but they understand the babysitter perfectly when she mouths the word up. She goes first so they can see where the finger holds are and the bricks that jut out for their feet. Then Claire, then Samantha watches her sister's foot ascend the smoke, the shoelace still untied. "Claire? Samantha? God damn it, you're scaring me. Where are you?" The specialist is standing just outside the half-open door. "Samantha? I think I've been bitten by something. I think I've been bitten by a goddamn snake." Samantha hesitates for only a second. Then she is climbing up the nursery chimney. And there you have it. And there you have it, people. A reading of stories like old-time radio. Old-time radio. Well, I had to push it along a little bit at the end to make sure we didn't run too long, but hey, folks, it's time to set this mystery ship on its rear. It's time to go. But I'm going to take a second and do two wonderful things. One of them is release the scratchin'. I'm releasing the scratchin'. I want to give a huge thanks to the people who donated to the show tonight. Lieutenant Cooker, EO2 Dave, Due Diligence, Empress Bitch to You, Girl Patriot, EO2 Dave again, Lieutenant Cooker, Sean Cho, EO2 Dave, EO2 Dave, EO2 Dave, EO2 Dave, Girl Patriot, EO2 Dave, Due Diligence, and Sean Joe. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for your support of this program. Meanwhile, over here at D Live, we've got some incredible people. Just absolutely incredible people. Oh my goodness, what did I do? What the hell did I do? I just erased D Live. Okay, let me pull them back. They're in there. They're out there. They're still alive. They haven't been grabbed by the specialist. There they are. There they are. Okay, let me open up the treasure chest. And I'm going to put a little something, something, something. I'm going to put a little something, something, something in that treasure chest. Yes, indeed I am. Indeed I am. I'm loading up the treasure chest right now. Spudley, thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. Okay. All right, the treasure chest is loaded. The treasure chest is loaded. I'm going to distribute the rewards right now to each and every one. It looks like it's coming your way in 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Our luckiest sailors this evening are. Come on, D Live. Break it loose. Break it loose. Who is it? Oh, come on already. Here we go. The luckiest followers are Lieutenant Cooker, 325 lemons. TL Spud, 187.4 lemons. Bad Zoot, 135.7 lemons. Gloria Paddock, 108 even. And Jayla 17, 90 lemons. 90 and a half lemons. Congratulations. Spudley, you are so kind. Ever so kind. Ever so kind. Folks, I want to take a moment to ask you to please, if you would. I got some info today from our dear sister Stephanie. You might know her as Artist61. She has a dear friend, a personal friend of hers, who is in need of prayers. What's going on here? Come on. Where's my... There it is. There it is. She said that she has a dear friend named Carrie. Carrie is 37 years old. She is the mother of 3 little girls and, or 3 little ones, sorry. Looks like 3 little boys, maybe. She's just, this woman, Carrie, has been diagnosed with 2 different blood cancers and is facing a very gnarly treatment regimen. We need prayers for this woman and her family. Let me see if I can show you a picture of this beautiful family right here. All right, let me put them on the screen. Yes. Look at this family. Look at this family right here. This girl right here is Carrie, and she's the one who has been diagnosed with 2 blood cancers. Folks, would you please keep this young lady? Would you keep her in your prayers? Her name is Carrie. Pray for a full recovery. If you believe in the power of your prayer, we can heal this girl. We can heal her. The doctors will sit back in amazement and go, I don't know what we did, but the power of prayer is unbelievable. Folks, please keep her in your prayers, would you? I'm asking. Next is a wonderful note from our dear sister Jayla 17, who is keeping us up to date on her husband. And folks, this is good news. This is freaking good news. She said, Just wanted to let you know that hubby has a cardiologist appointment yesterday. Had a cardiologist appointment yesterday. He said everything looks good. They set him up for cardiac rehab starting next week. They'll see him again in 3 weeks, and if all is well, he can be released to go back to work. They go back to see the surgeon next Thursday for a follow-up with him, so we'll see what he says then. But, folks, this is fabulous news. Fabulous, fabulous news. I'm ecstatic. I'm so happy for them. How wonderful. How absolutely wonderful. And has been another little different bit of a journey on the mystery ship tonight. I want to thank you for coming and hanging out with me. Thanks all of you for spending some time with us, spending a little time with us aboard the mystery ship. We will see you on the next exciting installment. I'm working on a brand new re-edit of the intro and outro of this show. You wouldn't believe, I'm not kidding you, you wouldn't believe how many pictures of people with shirts that I have. It's insane. I'm trying to edit, and I realize that I don't know if you can see this or not. Yes, you can see it. See, these are all thumbnails. These are all people wearing mystery ship shirts. There are about 300 of them. About 300 people wearing mystery ship shirts. And I'm trying to put together a video of all of them. It's incredible. I didn't realize I had made that many or sent out that many shirts. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's fabulous, in fact. Just freaking fabulous. I love all you people to death. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you again for your support of this program. And thank you again for last Saturday. It was just amazing. Nothing short of amazing. I look forward to seeing you this coming Friday. Have a great rest of your week, folks. We got 2 days left. Thursday, Friday. Knock it down. Enjoy the weekend. It's downright freezing out here. So I'm going to take my butt inside and say sayonara. I hope you had a good time. We will see you somewhere around the bend. Take care, my friends. Love you lots. See you on the next exciting installment of the Mystery Ship.